in the current Daf Beruchas Daf Ches. We begin on the last of the small lines, the last word on those small lines of Daf Ches and Aleph. Just a quick review of what we spoke about yesterday. HaKadosh Baruch Hu davens just like we daven. Daven lefnim, he should go lefnim shasadim. The same Amor Rabbi Yochanan was basically the Amor that went through the whole Daf yesterday. A lot of it was talking about the idea about anger, and we spoke about the request that Moshe Rabbeinu made regarding one of the famous ones was Tzadik V'Raloi and Machlekes, if he was actually notified. Why is it that righteous people suffer, and why is it that sometimes bad people have good? We spoke about that different names. Avram Avinu was the first one who called God Adon, the master of the world. Leah was the first one who gave Haidah, gave thanks. Reuven was called Reuven, and the name is what the Gemara spoke about, Shema Gram. Sometimes your name causes your mazel. Reuven is Reuben. Rus was Rava, that her grandson satiated God. We spoke about Mizmor David, Bavachim Nefshal B'nai, two diukim, two inferences of Mizmor David. He sang a song when his son is chasing to kill him. Yeah, because it wasn't a slave, it wasn't a mamzer. And also, why is it Morab Tzarai, but by Gog and Magog he says, what's the big deal? It's because how difficult it is for children that are not doing what as the parents need. That's how difficult it is. And we spoke about if a person is allowed to contend, a lot of Ahmed Beis on the bottom was talking about if you're allowed to take on a wicked person in this world. 4 different interpretations could depend if it's for your own stuff, if it's for God's sake, if it's if that guy's on a lucky roll, or if you're a righteous person or a totally righteous person. We spoke about making a set place where a person should daven, and Gadol Shimusha, how great is it to serve Torah Talmid Chacham more than actually learning from Talmid Chacham. And we concluded, which is a similar thing we're going to be speaking about in this stuff, regarding Tefillah B'tzibur, even if you cannot daven Tefillah B'tzibur, which a person should try to, but at least at that moment. Some of the ideas we're going to speak about today's daf, on Beruchas Daf Ches, we're going to continue with that theme we spoke about in the previous daf, on the top of this amud, regarding Tefillah B'tzibur. One should daven with the tzibur, and the idea about davening in shul. If one doesn't go to shul, he's called a shachin ra, he's called a bad neighbor, and it causes gullus. If a person does go, he merits to long life. A person should come into shul, also regarding how much you should come into shul, and also it should be a little bit before davening. You don't just run right into davening. 5 different interpretations regarding the pasuk Azoisi Spal. A person should daven le'es mitzvah. What's considered a time that you need to find something important? 5 different interpretations. Either means one's wife, or for learning Torah, or for death, or for burial, or for the lavatory. A person needs to have that sometimes, especially in Talmudic times. That's something a person really has to daven for. A person should daven where he learns, as the Gemara tells, "In la Kadosh Baruch Hu l'da'al halacha." Only thing God has now that the Beis Hamikdash is destroyed is in the 4 cubic feet of halacha. The same Amar is going to tell us 2 interesting halachas. One is that it's greater to get the fruits of your own labor, what's called Yigis Kapecha, than Yiras Shamayim. And also a person should live next to his Rebbe if he listens to him. If not, don't. And we're going to continue on a related shul topic around Kriyas HaTorah. You can't leave in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah, but between Aliyos you could. And also one could possibly learn in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah. A related discussion about the reading of the Torah is the halacha of Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum, which is a halacha to do it 2 times the Chumash and 1 time the Aramaic translation. And one should do it with the tzibur, meaning you should do it week by week with the tzibur, not before, not after. The Gemara is going to be talking about different rebukes or instructions that fathers gave to their sons, which include one of the halachas is al teshel amita aramis. Don't sleep on an Aramean bed, which is basically a non-Jewish bed. What does that mean? 3 interpretations. It means don't go to sleep without kriya shema lamita, or don't marry a giyaris, or literally there was an actual story that happened, and therefore they said don't actually sit on the Aramean's bed, on a non-Jewish bed. And to speak about the halacha that you're not allowed to go behind a shul when they're davening, because it looks like you're not interested in davening, therefore you're going behind the shul. But that's only if there's no other entrance, there's no other shul in that community, you're not carrying anything, you're not running, or you're not wearing tefillin, because if you are, then it seems like you're not just not coming into shul, you're busy with something else, and therefore you're not going in. We're going to be talking about that there were some tzaddikim that loved nations of the world, the Medes and the Persians, because of the derech eretz, the appropriate manners that they had. And then we come back to halacha of Mishnah. We opened up the Masechta regarding the machlekes about up until when can you say Kriya Shema at nighttime. The Gemara is going to say halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel in our Mishnah, which you could say Kriya Shema up until Alois HaShachar. There's going to be 2 actual versions of what the halacha l'maisa is. Can you say the night and the day Kriya Shema, one right before Alois HaShachar, one right after Alois HaShachar, which is the break of dawn, which is like 72 minutes before Netz? Or actually, can you say one of night and day, one right before Netz and one before after Netz? Obviously, the relevancy would be is when can you say the night Kriya Shema, when can you say day Kriya Shema? What's the period between Alois and Netz? Is that night Kriya Shema? Is that day Kriya Shema? And then that's obviously leads us into the last discussion regarding that there's a difference between the halachas of day and night and that of Kriya Shema, as we mentioned all the way in the beginning of the Masechta regarding B'shach b'chav kamecha. It doesn't say anywhere you say Kriya Shema at night and in the morning. It says you say it when you lay down to sleep and you get up in the morning. That could possibly be different than night and day, because people could sometimes go to sleep during what's considered night or day, not necessarily b'boy kaber. Okay, with that we begin Daf Ches. Amar Aleph again, like the last word on the small lines on the Daf. So Amar Shlakish again, continuing the theme regarding Tefillah B'tzibra and regarding davening in the shul. If someone has a shul in his city, he doesn't go into the shul to daven. This halacha paskin in Shulchan Aruch. You're considered a bad neighbor. Shenem, like it says in pasuk in Yomי. So says Hashem, Al Kol Shechnei Ram, regarding all the bad neighbors, Hanoigim Benachla, who touch the inheritance, which is referring to the shul, Asher Nchalti Es Am Yisrael, that I bequeath to my people, to the Jewish people, you consider a bad neighbor if you don't go into shul. But not only that, it causes the exile for him and his children, like it says at the end of that pasuk. I'm going to uproot them from their land. And the house of Judah, I'm going to take away from them, meaning it's going to cause galus. So that's again, like we said, the first idea. One should go to shul and daven mitzvah. If you don't go, called a bad neighbor. Now, however, it says the Gemara the following incident. They said to Rabbi Yechanan, there's some old people living in Babel. Rabbi Yechanan lived in Eretz Yisrael. They're telling him there's a lot of old people. Rabbi Yechanan lived till a ripe old age. There's old people in Babel too. Tamav Amar, he wondered and he said, the pasuk says in Devarim, that it should be increased the days of your life and that of your sons. Ala Adama, it says on the land which refers to Eretz Yisrael. That's where you live long life. How are there old people in Babel? Says the Gemara, once they told them, because they come early and they stay late in shul. Amar says, that's what helps them to live a long life like in Eretz Yisrael. Because we know the basic Knesset has a sanctity like Eretz Yisrael. He told them, Kadimu, go in early, meaning by Shachris. And stay late, meaning at nighttime. In other words, stay a long time in shul. And go into shul, that you live a long life. That's why, like we said, if one does go, one lives a long life. Now, Amr Bacha Reb Chanin, he says, Micro, what's the source for this? It's the Pasuk in Mishli. It says, Ashrei Adam Shemeli, praiseworthy is a person who listens to me, Lishakit al Dalsaise Yom Yom, who is diligent, who moves quickly by my doors every single day, Lishmer Mezuzis Pischi, to safeguard the doorpost of my entryway. It means to say the guy's coming into shul. He's safeguarding God's entryway, which is the shul. And what does it say afterwards for someone who's in shul a lot? Ki might see matzachim, whoever finds me finds life, which means, like we said, if someone goes to shul, he lives a long life. Now, related discussion regarding a halacha, regarding this, considering the significance of the shul, and one should be in shul, not just running into daven. Some Rav Chizdi says, La'olam yikanes adam shnei pesachim basic nesses. Literally, it sounds like the Gemara is saying that a person should always go through two entryways, two door entries, before he comes into shul. Says the Gemara, Shnei Pesachim, what do you need to have two doorways to come into the shul? It's not enough to have one doorway. So Elaim rather says the Gemara, and this is halacha, no, shiur Shnei Pesachim. It means the measurement of two doorways, which it's a machlekes either means 8 amis or 8 tfachim, but it's the width of a doorway. Two widths of doorways, that's how much into the shul you should go. Because you shouldn't be sitting right by the door, because it looks like that it's difficult for you, and you don't want to stay here, and you're ready to run out. Now, the Bach actually, he says that can't be the interpretation, because what's with a shul, like Baruch Hashem, this shul is busting at the seams, and someone's got to sit by the doorway. So what does that mean? You got to go in, it looks like you're ready to run out? No, it's just the place that's open. So he says, no, it means to say that the amount of time that it takes to walk 8 amas or 8 tvachim, sit a little bit, so that you could calm down first and just collect yourself. That's what it means, the shiur of Shnei Pesachim, not in space, but in time. Give yourself a little bit of time before davening, so you can collect your thoughts. And then and then you go ahead and you daven. That's what it means, Shiur Shnei Pesachim. Now, a related discussion, which we mentioned on top of this amud, we quoted this pasuk in the previous daf. We said that one should daven be'es ratzin an nasicha. There's an opportune time, which we said is at a time when the tzibur is davening. So related, the Gemara brings also regarding an opportune time a pasuk in Tehillim. It says, Al zois kol chassid elecha. For this, every pious person should pray to you le'es mitzay, to find it at the time that's needed. Meaning he should daven that this thing should be found for him when he needs it. It's not at all times, but when you need it, you should have it. What does this mean? So as we wrote down, there's 5 different interpretations of this pasuk. Amr Chanina. First interpretation. Leis mitzai, to find this when you need it, zu isha. This refers to a wife. Like it says the pasuk in Mishlei. It's matzah isha. If you found a wife, matzah tov, you found good. So you see that they use the terminology of finding for a wife. Now, interestingly, b'marav in the West, in Eretz Yisrael, kinasav inis itza, when a person would marry a wife, amri lehachi, they would tell him like this. So the chaverim would come over to him and say, matzah or matzah? You found or you're finding? What does that mean? So the Gemara explains what they were asking was as follows. Matzah, it's in the past tense, like it says in the pasuk we just quoted, matzah isha, matzah taiv. You found a wife, you found good. V'yafek ratzin ma'Hashem, and he obtains favor from God. So when they were saying, is it matzah? I mean to say, is she good? Might say, are you finding, like it says in the pasuk in Kahalas, I find more bitter than death as seisha v'gomer, the wife. So they ask him, is she good? Is she bad? Matzah maitza, which some commentaries explain because matzah in the past tense is, you found it already, it's done, she's your wife, it's over. Then it's going to be good for you. If it's maitzi, if it's constantly you're looking, you're finding, you're in trouble because you're going to find a lot of problems. It's going to be marmi mavas. It's a bit tight. So that's why they said matzah maitza, because again referring to this pasuk of matzah isha matzah taib or maitza marmi mavas. That's one interpretation. The person is davening that when he needs the wife, Hashem should give him his shidduch. Rav Nosson, a second interpretation, he says, La'is Metzai, for the time that it needs to be found, Zu Torah, refers to learning Torah. And like it says in the pasuk we also quoted before, Ki Maitzi Matzah Chayim B'Gomer, because Hashem says, those who find me, which refers to the Torah, find life. So you see the terminology of finding refers to also Torah. Nachman Yitzchak gives a third interpretation. Says La'is Metzai, to find the thing at the appropriate time. Zumisa. This refers to death, which means a person should die a peaceful and befitting death. We know the famous story of Baron Cutler. He gave it to the mafia boss. He said, gave him the blessing that he should die in your bed. And that's the story where the son came to Reb Shneur and he says, yes, my father died in the bed. It's a big thing to die in a befitting death. And the person should die from that. Like it says the pasuk in Tillim. It says, La mavis teitzais. For death, it's using the terminology of metzia, meaning in front of God, there's many different ways to go out from this world. Lamavis to death, taitzah, as the person goes out. But we see that it used the terminology of metzia, which also could mean of finding. Therefore, that it also could be le'es metzai. The Tamahach is similar in the Brisa. Teisha meis v'shleisha mine misa nivra ba'olam. There was 903 different types of death that God created for the world. Like it says in the pasuk, la mavis taitzais, for death, that there's different avenues. Now the word taitzais, begamatria hachihava. The numerical value, you could go ahead and calculate. Every single letter has a numerical value. Tuf is 400, vav is 6. You could go calculate. It comes up to 903. That's being alluded to say because there are 903 different ways a person could pass away. Says the Gemara Kasha Bekula, and the most difficult, the most harsh of them is askara, which like Rashi says, it's straglemont, which means like strangulation, which actually starts in the body and then it goes up to the neck where the person can't breathe anymore. That's the most harsh type of a death. Nichasha Bekula, the most easy one of them is neshika, is what's called by the kiss of God, that a person just passes away very simply. As the Gemara describes, askar damya, what this strangulation is similar, is kechizra begavva da'amr. It's like the branches of a thorny branch that gets stuck into a piece of wool, and when you pull back strong and stuck in that piece of wool, it yanks back. It's not possible not to yank some of the wool with it. That's how harsh it is, like trying to pull the soul out of the body. It's getting stuck in strangulation. That's the harshest type of a death. Those say a different interpretation of what this strangulation is kipituri befi veshet. It's like ropes in the opening of the veshet. Literally, the veshet is the actual by the one of the pipes that a person has in his throat, but it means it's round like that of the veshet. But what these ropes are referring to is that in the oceans there were certain places that you can't have. There's a magnetic field. You can't make a boat out of metal because the magnetic field is going to pull the boat down. So what they would do is that they would tie the boards of the ship together with ropes, very strong ropes, and they would obviously it has to be very tight in the holes because you have to hold it together. So that's what's saying. These ropes were very tightly in the holes of the ship, holding the boards together. And you're going to try to pull out those ropes. It's going to be very, very difficult because obviously it's trying to hold the boards of the ship together in the ocean. That's how harsh it is for a person who's dying at the most difficult death of strangulation. Now, the shikadami, the most easiest death, that of the kiss of God, is comparable. Kimishchal b'nisim echal, but it's like taking out a hair from a cup of milk, which just comes right out. Which those explain what this means to say is if a person is very connected to his physicality, so then it's very hard to get the soul out. If a person is a very spiritual person, it's like taking a strand of hair right out of the milk. It's not hard. A person's soul is not so connected to his body, and therefore that's the way the kiss of God. So that was the third interpretation regarding death. Rabbi Yochanan gives a fourth interpretation. La'is metzai means zukvur, it means burial. The Amr B'Chanina says, my cross, the pasuk that shows. There's a pasuk in Eve. Hasmeichem ele gil. Those who are happy regarding those things that you're really supposed to rejoice about. Yisisu, let them be happy. Ki yimtzu cover, because they have found the grave. You see, they're finding the grave. The grave is something that one has to find. Now, Amr Rabbi Shloimy says, Hainadam Inshi. Many times the Gemara quotes what people say. There's some truth in the aphorisms of people. Libayi Inshi Rachmi. A person should beseech mercy. Afila ad zibula basraisa shlama. Even up until a person has to have peace all his whole life, even on the day that he's buried, until the last dust, the last piece of dirt that's thrown over his grave, and I have that morbid sense when I'm by a Levi, I'm looking at them like thinking, this person, he needs this. The last bit of dirt, he's praying, he's like, I want that to be put on top of me. That's actually the sense. A person has to pray for everything in his whole life, even for his burial, that it should be going in the right way. Mazutra on a fifth interpretation, he says, Leis Mitzai ze beis hakisis, refers to the lavatory. I mean, a person should live in a place where he has an easily accessible bathroom, because the land in Bavel, which is where the Talmud Bavli was made, was very watery. And they couldn't just dig anywhere a pit to go ahead and relieve themselves. They had to go out far into the fields. They had to go very far. It's very difficult when one has to relieve himself. And therefore, that's also Leis Mitzai, that you have an available bathroom. Ami b'Merava, they said in the West, and anyone who's driving on roads knows this, sometimes you don't have an available bathroom, it's Leis Mitzai, something that's really important. And in the West, they said, Hod Mazruta, this last interpretation of the bathroom, the lavatory, Leis Mitzai, Adif Makulu, it's better than all the different interpretations. So like we said, you have different interpretations. If it's a wife, Torah, death, burial, they said, no, the lavatory, that takes it. That's the number one, because that's something Leis Mitzai. A wife, okay, you can manage a few years without getting married. The bathroom is something that you really need, and therefore, that's Leis Mitzai. Now, going back to the topic regarding the shul, so Amalei Rava l'Rav from Bar Papa. Rava said to Rav from Bar Papa, Lema Lamar, let the master tell us, Mahanim Milim al Yosef, from these beautiful teachings, Amrit Mishmeid Rav Chizda, that you said over in the name of Rav Chizda. But Mila de Beknishta, regarding things that relate to a Beis HaKnesses, which is the topic our daf is told, regarding that of a shul. So Amalei said to him, Hachem Rav Chizda, this is what Rav Chizda said. My Dechsev, what does it mean the pasuk in Tehillim? Oyev Hashem Sharitzina. God loves the gates of Zion, Mikol Mishkanos Yaakov, from all the assemblies of Yaakov. So he says, what does this pasuk mean? Oyev Hashem Sha'arim HaMetzuyanim. B'halacha, God loves the gates that are distinguished in halacha, because tzion means to say that it's distinguished and it's the gathering place of the tzibur. Yes mibate Kinesias umibate medrashas, more than the shuls and more than the Beis HaMedrash. Meaning, Mikol Mishkanos Yaakov means to say all the gathering. Shachin is from the Shechina of the gathering of Yaakov, means to say that the Sharei Tzion, the Sha'ar HaMetzuyanim, B'halacha, are more distinguished. God loves that more than the Bat Kinesias and Bat Midrashas, which the commentators ask, wait a second, aren't you supposed to say how great a shul is? Why are you saying Sha'ar HaMetzuyanim? That's because we're saying still, it's compared to that. If they're comparing me to someone that's really great, they say, Reb Chaim Kanievsky is better than Shloimy Schwartzberg. Okay, fine. That means to say that you're comparing something, so they say that's what makes we're talking about how great the Beis HaKnesses is. We're saying, okay, God loves Sha'ar HaMetzuyanim B'halacha more than the Beis HaKnesses, so it does show how great the Beis HaKnesses is. Behind Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg Uli says, Miyem Shachar Beis HaMikdash, from the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, Ein Lo LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam. God has nothing in this world. Ela Arba Amos Shel Halacha Bavad, only the 4 Amos of Halacha, which that is the place of God. So therefore, like we said, a person should daven where he learns, and because Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu Amos Shel Halacha Bavad, like the Gemara continues now, a story. V'mabaya. It says, Mereish HaBegarisna B'gai Beis. It says, I used to go ahead and I would learn at home, and I would go daven in shul. Even the Sheman Lahada Amr B'chia Barami Mishmei De'ula, the Meyam Shekar Char Beis HaMikdash. I heard the following teaching from the day that the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. Ein Lo Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olama Ela Arba Amos Shel Halacha Bavad. God only has the 4 cubic amas of halacha, so Lo have a Metzilna Lehecha Degarisna. So I only started davening where I learned, because where is the place? Someone told me a story last night. He said that he had it was yesterday in the morning. He said that someone had made his wedding at the previous Sima Shas the same night, and he found out someone said, "I can't come to your wedding." The Sima Shas says, "Oh, he went to ask his Rav, should I push on my wedding?" He says, "No, make it on that night. You know what great hashpais there are in the world at that time. The Sima Shas, all Jewish people are accepting upon them 7.5 years of Torah learning. Make it that night. You know what mazel you're going to have." So the same thing over here. He says, I'm going to daven where I learn. God only has the place of where a person learns. That's exactly where I'm going to daven. And therefore he says, I'm going to daven over there. Similarly, Rabami Barabasi, these two Amiram, Avagav Dehavalu Tleiser Be Kanishta B'Tveria. Even though they had 13 shuls in Tveria, Leimasla Ela Beinei Amudi, they only daven between the pillars, which the Beis HaMedrash is supported by those pillars, Heicha Davagarsi, where they learned. And that's actually halacha. A person should try to daven where he learns. In Baruch Hashem, the Talmud River Learning Center, which is where there's davening and learning, we get to accomplish both of them. Right after the shir, we daven in the place where God has, which is the learning, then we go ahead and we daven. Now, another teaching from the same Amora. Greater is the one who has benefit from his own labor, more than someone who has the fear of heaven. Why? Regarding someone who has the fear of heaven, it says a pasuk in Tehillim, Ashri ish yaris Hashem. Praiseworthy is the person who fears God. Okay, but regarding someone who has the benefit of the fruit of his own labor, says the pasuk in Tehillim, Yigia kapecha kiseichel, the toil of your palms, when you eat that, when you have the benefit of your own hard work, ashrecha v'toivloch, you're praiseworthy and it's good for you. So what do we see? Ashrecha, praiseworthy means ba'il mazeh in this world. V'toivloch la'il maban, it's good for you in the world to come. So ulagabi yishema, but regarding someone who has the fear of heaven, v'toivloch liksibbe, it doesn't say it's going to be good for you, which means to say, Yirei Shemayim has only one of the two. Nenem Yigia kapoy, he's both this world and in the next world. It's something that does on many levels. Work for it. When you get it on your own, that's a great thing. It's going to give you something even greater than your Shemayim. It's going to give you benefit in this world and the world to come. Another teaching from the same Amar It says, a person should always live in the place of where his teacher is. As long as Shimi ben Gera, who is the teacher of Shlomo HaMelech, was alive, Shlomo didn't marry the daughter of Pari, because we find right after the death of Shimi, it says that Shlomo HaMelech went and married the daughter of Pari. So you see that it's good, you live where your Rebbe is, your Rebbe keeps you in your place. But it says the Gemara, but Vatanya in the Brisa, it says actually Al Yadr, don't live in the place of your Rebbe. How do we resolve that contradiction? It says the Gemara, it's not difficulty. The Kayifle. If a person is subservient to his teacher, he accepts his rebuke, then live by him, because then he's going to set you on the right path. But if you don't listen to him, you're not subservient to him, it's better not to be close to him, because like the famous Talmudic dictum, better like you don't realize what you're doing wrong than being deliberate, because your Rebbe is telling you, don't do this, don't do that, and whatever, and you're starting not to listen, then you consider amazed. So if you're not listening to me, not subservient, then go ahead, don't live next to him. But again, that's the two ideas that this Amar says, it's good to have your own labor and also live next to your Rebbe if you're going to listen to him. Now, continuing a related discussion that we said, a shul topic regarding Kriyas HaTorah. Amr Avhuna by Yehuda, Amr Benachem, Amr Abami. Maidich said, what does it mean the pasuk in Yeshaya? V'oizvi Hashem, those who forsake Hashem, yichlu, they're going to be consumed. What does it mean? Someone who forsakes God. Zeh hamanich Sefer Torah, and the gears of the Bach adds on Keshu Petuach. Someone leaves the Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll, when it's open, v'yetz, and he leaves, which is a halacha. One's not supposed to leave in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah. When it's being read, don't leave, because that's considered forsaking God. They're reading from his Torah, and you're leaving. Now, nothing being garba legarba, but he would leave between aliyahs, between person to person, which is also halacha. If it's between aliyahs, then one could walk out. Now, Papa asked, "Bein psuk le what's halacha between psukim?" Now, in our context, the way we learn, it's not really relatable, because that's always during the Kriyas HaTorah. In Talmudic times, they would have someone who would translate the Kriyas HaTorah into Aramaic, which was the language of the people. So then it would be relevant to say, okay, they're not reading from that moment. When the guy is translating, could you leave then? That was his question. Says the Gemara, take a let it stand. It's not clear what the halach would be, if that's considered Oizvi Hashem or not. Now, but the Gemara tells the Rav Sheshes, the Amar Rav Sheshes, Mahader Ape V'Garis, he would turn his face away, and he would learn what he's learning when they were reading from the Sefer Torah. Amar, he would say, Anan B'didan, we're doing what we're doing, Ve'enu B'didu, and they're doing what they're doing, which is, as Taisus points out, which is also halacha, is that, but you obviously can't be doing it loud, because that's really disgraceful when they're reading from the Torah, and it's only if there is 10 other people, which is a minyan. And the Rif actually says that no, Rav Sheshes was different, and this is the halacha, because he's Torasei Mnasei. All he did was learn Torah all day. But he says that, therefore, but us, that we don't learn Torah all day, it wouldn't be appropriate for a person to be learning during Kriyas HaTorah. There might be some exceptions, but that's the basic halacha. During Kriyas HaTorah, one should pay attention and not even learn Torah. Another teaching from the same Amar, Amar Avhuna by Yehuda, Amar Bami. So, in a related discussion, a person should always finish the parsha of every single week, every single Shabbos. We divide the whole Chumash Torah into parshas. A person should always finish it im hatzibur, with the public. You should read the Chumash 2 times, and 1 time the Aramaic translation, which again is also halacha. A person, it's not just a nice thing, a nice minhag, it is halacha to do Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum every week with the tzibur. Now we continue Talmud Beis. The Filat Taras V'Divan, even the Psukim in Bamid, which talks about the places of certain Shvatim where they got in Eretz Yisrael, that even those places which don't have an Aramaic translation, that, okay, so you can't read the Targum 1 time, but then you read the Chumash 3 times, you read the Hebrew word 3 times, because you got to read it 3 times. Generally, it's Shnai Mikra, 2 times the Chumash and 1 time the Targum, but again, if you can't, then it's going to be 3 times of the Mikra. And says the Gemara, why? Whoever finishes his parashas with the tzibur, they're going to lengthen his days and his years. Again, days and years means to say that it's a long life in quantity and long life in quality. So it says the Gemara, Rabbi Bar Abai, he thought, okay, look, I got to do this halacha. I don't know if I can do this every week. I'm going to finish the parashas of the whole year, but Mal Yom Kippur, every Yom Kippur, I can't go to work anyway. Every Yom Kippur, everyone's busy, whatever. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do the whole Shnai Mikra V'Echad Targum on every Yom Kippur. It's Shemini Atzeres is coming up, Simchas Torah. Okay, let me get this done. So Tani Lei Chia Barav Medifti. No, so Chia Barav Medifti taught him the following brayso. said the pasuk says in the Yikra, "V'nisim es nafshei seichem b'tishla chodesh be'erev." You should afflict your souls on the 9th of the month in the evening. Now, the difficulty is this is talking about Yom Kippurim, which is the 10th of the month of Tishrei. So he says, what do you fast? Do you afflict yourself on the 9th of the month? Haloi basir misan, and you fast on the 10th. What is the pasuk saying in the 9th of the month in the evening? It's coming to tell you, whoever eats and drinks on the 9th of the month, the pasuk considers him as if he afflicted himself on the 9th and the 10th of the month. So that's what the pasuk is really saying. Prepare yourself on the 9th of the month for the affliction of tomorrow, then I'm going to consider it in my eyes, says God, as if you also afflicted yourself today. Because that also shows the element of that you're celebrating the fact that we have such a thing as Yom Kippur. But one thing he was telling him is, Erev Yom Kippur is not a time for learning. Erev Yom Kippur is a time for eating and drinking, and that's the halacha that we see from this pasuk. Therefore, you can't go ahead and wait till right before Simchas Torah and do it in Erev Yom Kippur, because that's not a good time to do it, because you're supposed to be eating and drinking then. Okay, so Sabalak Daminu, he thought, okay, let me go ahead and do all the parashas in 1 week or 2 weeks before the whole thing. I won't wait till Erev Yom Kippur. Right away, so after Simchas Torah, I'm going to start Beruchas Daf Ches, so I'm going to do the whole thing, because I can't do this thing every week. It's too much for me, this consistency. So Amalei Hu Sabah, so a certain elder told him, no, Tanina, we learned in the Brisa, that's also not an option. It says, you can't do it before the Shabbos, you can't do it after the Shabbos. Rabbi Shloimy ben Levi said to his sons, which just opens up, like we wrote down on the board, many fathers teaching their sons different teachings. This opens up the conversation, because it's talking about the halach of Shnai Mekaveh Targum. Then we're going to go into different fathers who told their sons different things, which is also, we know tzava, fathers tell their sons specific halachas. He told his son, Ashlimu Parsha Seichu Matzibra. Finish the parsha of the week with the tzibur, with the people. Shnai Mikavech Targum, 2 times the Chumash, 1 time the Targum, which every single week, once they start reading the parsha by Shabbos, by Mincha, and on, that's already considered Imat Tzibur, that's halacha. And up until when can you do Shnai Mikavech Targum? Again, I'm just highlighting what Taisa says, is that until you don't eat bread, you don't eat a meal on Shabbos, which is the discussion in the commentaries in halacha. Does that mean the first meal, Shabbos day meal, Shal Shudis, Chazanish? But the point is that, if you finished eating ready, you could still do it. But the mitzvah and the mufchar is from when Shabbos Mincha, for when you start reading the new parasha, up until the next week, before you eat the Shabbos meal, a person is supposed to reach Shnai Mikavech Targum. Another thing he told his sons is V'yizaru b'ridin. Be careful with the jugular veins. What does that mean with the jugular veins? Rabbi Yehuda, it's halacha that Rabbi Yehuda says that none. We learn the Mishnah Masechet Chulin. Rabbi Yehuda, he says that when you're shechting, when you're slaughtering a bird, you have to be careful until you slaughter the jugular veins, because you have to make sure all the blood of an animal comes out before you eat it. Now, this was a halacha specifically by a bird, by fowl, because by bird they would roast it all at once together, and therefore by an animal when they would slaughter it, so they would cut it limb by limb. So that would get all the blood of the animal out. By bird, they would just shecht it and then they would roast it. So you have all the blood in the animal. The jugular veins is right by the neck. That's where a lot of the blood is. He said, make sure you cut that too, because you got to get all the blood out. So that was specifically halacha regarding birds. He said, that was his second halacha. He said, be careful with the jugular veins. And third of all, he says, Vizoru bezakin. Be careful with an elderly person, sheshachach tamudai machmas ansa, that if he got his learning because of the situations of life, which is he became sick or because of the difficulty of parnasa, be careful, you should give him the same respect. Why? I mean, like we say, luchis v'shivei luchis menachas ba'aron. What was put into the ark in the Beis HaMikdash? Not just the regular tablets, the broken tablet that Moshe Rabbeinu broke the first time around, as the pasuk says in Devarim, asher shibarta v'samta ba'aron. Even the broken ones were put into the ark. So you see, even quote unquote the broken tablets. The old person who forgot his learning, he's the broken tablets. Respect him. It was put into the aron too. Give him the same respect, even though he's not the same Talmid Chacham anymore. Now we say continue on this theme regarding parents telling their children. So Rabbi said to his sons, when you cut meat, don't cut it on your hand. Now, why did he tell him this? So there's 2 interpretations. There are those that say, Mishum Sakana, because of danger. If you're cutting on your hand, many people have had such situations that you might cut your hand, it might be dangerous. So don't cut on your hands. There are those that say, no, Mishum Kilkal Suda, because it's going to ruin the meal. Meaning, even if you're not going to cut your hand off, but you might just puncture yourself, and blood's going to come out. It's going to ruin the food. It's make everyone disgusted that you got your blood on the food. That's why don't cut meat on your hands. Another thing he told his sons is, Val Teichval Mita Aramis, don't sit on an Armenian bed, which means the nations of the world don't sit on a non-Jewish bed. And Val Tavra Achari Beis HaKnesses, don't go behind a shul b'shosha tzibur mispal, when the minyan is davening. So we're going to explain these 2 halachas. Says the Gemara, he said, Val Teichval Mita Aramis, don't sit on an Armenian bed. What does that mean? So as we wrote on the board, there's three different interpretations. Ikadam, there are those that say, like Tigana b'lei krishma, don't go to sleep without saying krishma alamita, which was a topic we were saying earlier, which means to say, because then your bed is similar to a non-Jewish bed. The non-Jew, he just plops into his bed. A Jew's not like that. He realizes God's the sovereign force in the world. He takes that realization and he goes to sleep. So don't go to sleep in the non-Jewish bed means to say, don't go to sleep without saying krishma alamita. Vikidam, those that say what he said was like tenasvu kiyurta, a bed is also with his marital intimacy. What he was alluding to them when he says don't sleep on the Armenian bed means don't marry a convert, a female convert, which because one has to be actually on a great level to marry a female convert. He was telling him that be careful, don't marry such a woman because you might not be able to handle that. Vikidam, there are those that say aramis mamish. No, he literally meant to say don't sleep on the Armenian bed. What does it mean? Why can't you sit on the Mita Aramis? Because there was actually such a story with Rav Papa. Rav Papa Ozla Gabi Aramis. Rav Papa went to Armenian. So the woman went and put out a bed for him. In Talmudic times, they would sit on mitos. The bed was what they would recline on. They didn't sit on chairs. They had like beds. So Amalei Shevs, he said, okay, sit, Rabbi. So Amallah, he said to her, no, any yeshiv, I'm not going to sit at Shetek Amita until you lift up the bed first. So she picked up the cushion, umatzu sham tidik mes, and they found a dead child. Her dead child was on the bed, and the cushion was on top of him, and because she wanted to accuse him and say, you sat on my child and you killed him. So she was trying to set him up. From here the sage just said, you're not allowed to sit on Armenian bed, literally. And that's because many times we find in the Talmud that there was a story that happened, and the sages found it in their wisdom to say, okay, we see that there's such a precedent, and they then made such a gezerah. This literally means to say, either that we said it means don't go to sleep without saying krishma, or it means don't marry a female convert, or it means to say, literally, don't sit on an Armenian bed. The next halacha he told his sons was, Val tavayra acheri beis hakneses, don't go behind the shul, b'shor shetzibur misbalen, when the tzibur is davening. Says the Gemara, Mesayel Rabbi Shloimy Levi, this supports Rabbi Shloimy Levi. Because the Amir Shloimy Levi, he said, and this is halacha in Shulchan Aruch, Asur loy Adam, it's forbidden for a person, sheyaver acher beis hakneses, to go behind the shul, means to say, let's say where the opening is on the east, now go behind the shul, b'shor shetzibur misbalen, when the tzibur is davening, because it looks like that you're trying to flee from the opening of the shul on the eastern side, which what it was in Talmudic times. So don't go behind the shul because you say, hey, what's going on with him? Why is he not coming to shul? He's going behind the shul. Don't go when they're davening and go behind the shul. Now, Amabai, however, he qualifies this halacha, and he says there's many different qualifications that would make this as a prohibition. Well, we didn't say this. First of all, that's only if there's no other entryway. If there's another entryway, it's not obvious that you're trying to run away from the entry. You might be coming in the back door. If there's another opening, but there's no problem. Number two. Well, we didn't say this is a problem. There's no other shul in town. If there's another shul, that's not a problem. It doesn't look like you're not trying to daven. You might be going to the other minyan. Third of all, we didn't say you're not carrying a package. And number four, you're not running. And number five, you're not wearing tefillin. But if you're doing any one of these five things, less lambad, which is halacha also, then we're not concerned, because if you're wearing tefillin, obviously you're not disregarding God, you're wearing tefillin. If you're running, it doesn't look like you're trying to not go into shul, you look like you're running somewhere, you might be going on that solid call. If you're carrying a package, you're obviously busy with a package, and again, therefore it's not going to be a concern. But if you're not doing anything, and you're just walking by in the back, that says the Gemara, that's forbidden to be done, because that looks like you're trying to avoid walking into shul. Now, related discussion, Tanya in the Brisa, meaning regarding people saying different teachings, and regarding about cutting meat. We mentioned before about cutting meat. So Amar Rabbi Kiva said, says, within three things, I like the meats, which are one of the nations of the world. He says, I like them. Why? Which was a teaching we mentioned before. When they cut meat, they cut on the table. That's very clean. When they kiss, they kiss on the hand. When they kiss the friend's hand, that's a respectful way, because a person has spit. And if you're going to kiss someone on the cheek, or something, it's like, ew, those kids, they wipe it off. On the hand, was considered more respectful. And when they give counsel, they give counsel in the field, because like people say, what's called yeshas naim l'kaisel, the walls have ears. And therefore he says, I like that, because they're very discreet. Amar Rav Adabar, he says, my crow, it's the pasuk. It's a pasuk in Bereshis, in Sefer Bereshis. Vayishlach Yaakov sent, vayikra l'Rachel Leah hasada el tzayne. He sent for his wives to the field, to where his flock was, to tell them he wants to get out of here from their father's household. Why did he call them to the fields? Because that's discreet. So he said, I like the meats in these ways. You could look at a nation in the world, find something appropriate that they have. Similarly, Tanya learned in the Brayso, Amr Mulila says, B'shleisha devarim oivani esa parsim. It says, in three things I like the Persians, which is, hein tsnuin b'chilas, and they're modest in how they eat. V'tsnum b'beisakise, they're modest in the lavatory. V'tsnum b'davacha, they're also modest in something else, which refers to marital intimacy. He says, I like that. I like that they're modest in their conduct. Now, in spite of that, however, the Gemara tells us a pasuk in Yeshaya, but ani tzuvesi l'mukadasha. God says that I commanded to those who are my prepared ones, which this pasuk is in the context of the downfall of Bavel. Hashem is saying, I commanded the kings of Persia to come and destroy the Babylonians. Why were they called limukudashai, to those who were prepared? So Rabbi Yisrael told the Brayse, Elohar Parsim, this refers to the Persians, who they're the ones who conquered Bavel. Hamukudashin, the word kedushin also means prepared. They're prepared umezamanim the Gehenim, and they're prepared for Gehenim. So although he was saying, I like the Persians, they're so modest, but we know, as we have a precedent not so long ago, there was a certain nation that was also very appropriate and have good conduct, but they were wicked, evil people. Same thing as the Persians. The Gemara is telling you, although he liked the Persians in their conduct, that they were very modest, but don't think that they were noble people. God says that they're prepared to be put into Gehenna. Now we go back to Allah of our Mishnah. We opened up the Masechta talking about when you start saying Krishma in the evening. So he said it's from when the Kahanim go to eat their truma, which is Tzeis HaKachav, when the stars come out at night, up until when can you say Krishma? One opinion was up until the end of the first Hashmer, which is 4 hours into the night. The second opinion, the Chacham said up until midnight. The third opinion, Mil says, you got all night up until the break of dawn. So Amar Rabbi Huda Mishmul, he says halacha fasik Lil, that one can say Krishma all night long. Now, related discussion, the Gemara says Tanya Linda Braysa. A different opinion, but it's going to come right to this opinion of Rabbi Gamliel. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, he says, it could be, sometimes a person can say Krishma, shtei pam balayla, 2 times at night, achaz kodim shi'ala mora shachar, 1 time right before the break of dawn, which we said, you could say like Rabbi Gamliel, Krishma up until the break of dawn. 1 right after the break of dawn, similar like how we daven over here, Mincha Ma'ariv, right before Shkia, right after Shkia. So he says sometimes you could be davening 2 times, you could say Krishma 2 times at nighttime, 1 right before Alei Shacha, 1 right after Alei Shacha, and you can fulfill your obligation. We know you have Krishma 2 times, so you normally think, in the morning and at night. Says the Gemara, no, Rabbi Shimon Yochai says you can mamish be saying it 2 right after each other. 1 right before Alei Shacha, 1 right after Alei Shacha, and you can fulfill both of your halachas of Krishma, one of the nighttime Krishma, one of the daytime Krishma. And the Gemara asked, however, on his terminology, on his wording. Hagufa Kasha, is there internal contradiction? Amit, you said, Pa'am Sha'ad Mekari Krishma, Shtei Pam Balayla. You said a person could sometimes be saying Krishma 2 times at the nighttime. So obviously you said 2 cases. You said, what's it 2 times at nighttime? 1 right before Alais, 1 right after Alais. So obviously you're considering after Alais Hashacha to be Leil Yehud, to be nighttime. And then you go and you say, and you can fill your obligation. 1 of the daytime Krishma, 1 of the nighttime Krishma. Hey, obviously you're considering after the break of dawn to be daytime. Is it nighttime or is it daytime? So it says the Gemara, it's not a difficulty. Why? Truth is, that's nighttime. Up until Netzacham, up until sunrise, that's still nighttime. And this is the last thing we wrote on the board. This is we're calling it daytime because the ikad the inchi dekaimi. There are people that get up at that time already after Alais. Therefore, it's already the time of the daytime Krishma. Because, like we said, the daytime Krishma doesn't say in the morning. It doesn't say by the daytime. It says uv kumecha when you get up. People get up already at that point in time. But the people that get up by Hishaita at that time, therefore that's considered, quote unquote, the daytime Krishma, even though in halacha, for other things, it's still considered nighttime. Now, Amar Rav Acha Bar Chanina, Amar B'Shimon Levi, says that halacha, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the halacha follows like Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, that one could say his Krishma of the daytime, even before Netzachama, right after Alei Shachar, and this is the halacha. One could say Krishma already after Alei Shachar, which is already, even though in other halachas it could be considered nighttime, it's considered daytime, it's already kumecha. Now that's one version. But there are those who say his halachic decision, ahad Tanya, on a different brayso, which sounds very similar, but it's a different version. It's again Reb Shimon ben Yochai, but this time he says it Mishum Reb Kiva, the name of Reb Kiva. It says Pam Shad Mekar Krishma Shtei Pam Bayayim. At times it could be that person can say Krishma 2 times during the daytime. Achas Kaidman Netzachama, Achas Lachar Netzachama. 1 right before sunrise, 1 right after sunrise. The Yaitz ben Yidei Chavas, and he can fulfill his obligation. Achas Shayam v'Achas Shalayla. 1 of them is daytime Krishma, and 1 of them is nighttime Krishma. So here also the Gemara asked the same question on this version. Haguvakash, it's a contradiction. Ahmed, you said Pam Shadim Kar Krishma Shtei Pam and Bayayim. Sometimes a person can say Krishma 2 times during the daytime. So Amal Kaidman Netzachama Yamamu. So obviously you said once before and that's 1 after that. That means to say even before sunrise, after Alei Shacha, it's already considered daytime. And then you say, which obligations are you going to fulfill? One of the daytime, one of the nighttime. So obviously you see that before nets, it's nighttime. So before nets, after alais, is that daytime or is it nighttime? Says the Gemara, time of Testament Aleph Loy. It's not a difficulty. The truth is before netzachama yamamuhu. Again, this is different than the first version. First version held that the period between alais hashachar and netzachama is considered nighttime. This version holds no. That period already from alais hashachar is considered daytime. So already for halach it's considered daytime. So why are we calling it quote unquote nighttime? Because you said you could still fulfill your nighttime obligation of krishma up until nets. So that means before nets, after alei shachar, it's still considered quote night, but you said it's not nighttime. You said it's daytime. No, it's considered nighttime for krishma because the ikka inshi degani behi shaita. There are people that are still sleeping at that time. Therefore, we could call it uvishachpacha. And that Rabbi Shloimy Levi, which is the second version, says that actually is the halacha too. That one actually could fulfill his nighttime obligation of krishma even after Leisa Shachar. So although that seems contradictory, you can't do both during the same period in halacha, but you could do your nighttime krishma even after Leisa Shachar up until nets, and you could do your daytime krishma even before netzachama from after Leisa Shachar. Because it is considered on some level of b'shachbacha, and on some level it's kumecha. You can't do both, but you could do either one, because in that context it is considered b'shachbacha of kumecha. Now to finish off the daf, for those who want to know where we're ending, we're going to go till it says Maisa. Amr B'Zera, he says, ubavad, however, even though someone's going to say krishma of the nighttime all the way up until right before Amud HaShachar, which we said you could say it, even according to the first version, you can't say the bracha of Ma'ariv when we say Ashkivenu, when the person is saying Krishma then, because that's not the time of going to sleep anymore. That's, if anything, it's the end of when a person sleeps. Remember, Rabbi Gamliel said V'shach b'cha means as long as a person sleeps, but you can't say Hashkivenu, lay us down. That would be in the beginning of when going to lay down. It could be Uv'shach b'cha, when you're still laying down, but you can't say a bracha of Hashkivenu. Now, however, he says, that he said Allah is like Rabbi Kiva that we just mentioned before. He says, Lav b'feirish, it wasn't said explicitly, el mechlala, it was inferred. Why? That who's Zugad Rabban, and there was a certain pair of rabbis, the Shtarka Behilula de Braid Rabbi Shua ben Levi. They got drunk at the wedding of the son of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. And they slept and they dozed off until after Amud HaShachar. And they woke up and they says, oh, we didn't say Krishma nighttime yet. Also coming to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, they came from Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Again, this is after Alois HaShachar, but before that, Amr, he said, Kedaihu Rabbi Shimon, listen, we know this, people sing this song. Rabbi Shimon Yechai, he's worthy to rely on him in situations of pressing need. So therefore, even though it's after Alois HaShachar, you could still say Krishma of the nighttime. Now, the reason why they're saying it's Mechlala Itmar, it's not Beferish Itmar, is because if it's not B'Shas Tzchak, and this is actually the halacha, one should not be saying Krishma of the nighttime after Alois HaShachar. If it was a situation of duress, that what happened was they dozed off, it was something of Einus, then the halacha is going to be like this version of Rabbi Kiva, that you could even say the nighttime Krishma B'Shach B'cha, even after Alois HaShachar. So what we spoke about today's daf in Beruchas Daf Ches, we continue from the previous daf regarding talking about the halacha of tefillah. It should be with the tzibur, it should be in shul. If a person doesn't go to shul, he's called a bad neighbor, it causes exile. If he does go, he merits to live a long life. A person should come into shul, which was one version in Rashi, either a distance of 8 amos or 8 tvachim, or it means the amount of time you should be a little bit before. Don't run right into shul. 5 different interpretations of the pasuk for this. A pious person should daven la'is mitzay at a time when he has to find it. Either means to marry a wife, or to learn Torah, or regarding how he dies, or his burial, or regarding the lavatory, which the Gemara in the West said that that's the best of them all. A person should daven where he learns, because the only thing God has is the 4 cubic amas of halacha, and therefore it's appropriate to daven where you learn. The same Amar then said the following 2 teachings: Zigis, kapecha, kiseichel, asherecha, b'tayvlach. How great it is for a person that merits to get the fruit of his own labor, and the person should live next to his Rebbe if he listens to him. If he doesn't listen to him, better not, because then he's going to be amazed that I'm not a shogeg. We continue with the shul topic regarding Kriyas HaTorah. You can't leave in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah, but between aliyos you could. There was a question in the Gemara regarding in between psukim, which is not negated for our time, and there was a possible discussion if you could learn in the middle of Kriyas HaTorah. But it seems the consensus is one cannot usually. The related discussion was Shnai Mekavech Targum. A person should read every single week's parasha 2 times with the Targum. And he should do it with the tzibur. Can't do it the week before, can't do it the week after. Then we have fathers that were telling their sons different teachings, and one of them was, don't sit on the Armenian bed. What does that mean? Either don't go to sleep without saying Kriya Shema Lamita, don't marry a Giyeris, or literally, there was such a story that happened that they tried to set him up, and therefore with a dead child underneath. So actually don't sit on their bed because you don't know what they're setting you up with. Another one from that same father who said, don't go behind the shul when they're davening. Now the Gemara qualified, Abaye said that's only if there's no other opening, there's no other shul in that town, you're not carrying anything, you're not running, or you're not wearing tefillin. Because if you're doing any one of those things, we're not suspecting you that you're not trying to daven in shul. Then we mentioned that there were some Amoraim that loved the nations of the world, the Medes, the Persians, because they were very modest and discreet. And then we went back to the halacha of our Mishnah, that halacha is like a mglila in our Mishnah, that one could say krishma of the evening, all the way up until Alei Shachar, till the break of dawn. There were actually two versions when you could say your day and night krishma. Was it right before and after Alei Shachar, or was it right before and after Netzach Hama? Which obviously has the differences regarding when do we consider v'shach b'chav kamecha, which actually in halacha, it's actually, we pass like both of these interpretations in the lenient way. And we said that, how do you calling it either doing both at night or at daytime? Which one is it, night or day? How can you fulfill then the krishma of the night or day at that time period? Is because we said it is a difference between the halachas of night and day than that of krishma. You could possibly be fulfilling your night or day krishma during what we call the opposite of day or night, because it doesn't depend on night and day in exact. It depends on the b'shach b'chav kamecha, when you actually lay down and people are still sleeping when it's halachic day, or people are getting up when it's still halachic night, then you can fulfill that one, the b'shach b'chav kamecha. Thank you so much for the Talmud Learning Center, Torah Anytime, and Daf Yomi.